I think the main thing we're learning, or it seems to be sort of coming out, is that the villa is a good alternative to a hotel. You have it, the group constituent group staying there is your group of friends. So it's it's social distancing already. You're not in a mass market environment where a hotel where you don't actually know who the other guests are, you don't know where the guests have been, you may even you don't even know where the staff have been. Okay, so with a villa, you have your own personal space for a group of you, and I think people are now perceiving that as being the way to go, in terms of to get a holiday, but to have not just the luxury of privacy, but the safety of privacy. And people are saying, well, okay, that's a good environment for me to bring my family. I think what we're seeing, I mean, we're seeing bookings for next year already. Um, Mainly, the first group of people who are doing bookings at the moment are weddings, because people plan quite a long way ahead. And I think most people who are doing their wedding saying, well, I think this is probably going to be over by next year, so I'm going to plan my wedding. Um, I think the last group we're going to see coming back is families. I think most parents are going to be a little bit more risk adverse. And so the actual act of traveling will only happen when they feel it's safe. Now, when it's safe, that's a good question. We are seeing bookings for Christmas already. In fact, we're getting quite busy for Christmas. I think people perceive that might be the time to travel. I think the first group, which we'll see traveling, are the younger generation. When we were talking earlier, I mentioned I've got a 21-year-old daughter. She would be on an airplane tomorrow. She thinks she's indestructible. She thinks this coronavirus is a complete pain up the backside for her, and is actually a constraint on her social life. And so I think we'll find that the younger generation, who are more risk, they're happy to take those risks, they'll travel first. And I think they'll travel in groups, because one of the things they've missed is this personal contact. We're all Zoomed up, we're all on Teamed up, we're all Skyped up, and actually, I think they'd like to meet face to face. And so I think we're finding that the first lift will be the younger generation who want to get together in an environment, and a villa is not only good value when you start looking at that sort of group, but it's also secure and safe, and gives them a location where they can enjoy themselves. So I think 20 to 35-year-olds we'll see traveling first. We're already seeing that in China. It's that age group which is now really wanting to travel. So I think it's going to be the younger generation travel first. I think the families will come last, when they're ready.
And this is not a question that we've been answering just during the pandemic. We have been answering since the beginning of our product launch back in 2016. And the really short of it is you don't really see it, but like operationally, you do, like a typical host do spend a lot of money and time in arranging check-in, check-out processes, handling and exchanging of keys, whether they do it themselves or they outsource it to someone to do it, or they get their neighbors to do it. There is still a cost component that's involved in that whole process. So decreasing operational costs by having one of these little devices in there. I mean, I think we ran a study early on when we first started offering this into the market, that one of these devices, not just this one, like similar products as well, you could easily recover the cost of investment within a couple of bookings, and then after then on, it just directly will benefit you in terms of the reduction in operational costs that you see. So that's definitely where I'm coming at, and of course as we go on to a more relaxed world, as Thibault mentioned, right? Like the having check-in, automated check-in, contactless check-in. I don't think this would be no longer like a nice to have. It used to be. So I mean, those of you who are managing this professional, you must know already on a lot of the platforms, having a smart lock or having an automated 24/7 check-in, check-out process used to be required if you wanted to be listed as a business ready property, right? Because the nature of business travelers is they come and go whatever time. They're not going to stay around and try to coordinate for a key pickup time. But that used to be a nice to have. But now going into post the pandemic, it definitely would probably be a more on the mandatory side. Make sure you have this so you don't, have a lot of people meeting different strangers just to pass on keys. So we do see it, on both front that regulatory, like the regulations would mandate for you to have a technology like this. At the same time, don't really worry about it. Make your own calculations. But on our side, we have done this before in the past. We have helped thousands of hosts around the world do this, more than that. But essentially, you can recover the cost in just a couple of bookings. Yeah, you can really do that. And then here on out, like it would just be direct cost savings to your bottom line.
I think it's always about risk diversification in general. Yeah. So I think it is an important bit that we adjust our business to not be dependent on one big part. So, and that means not being dependent from one channel, not being dependent from one tourist group or something like that. So that's where we strongly believe it's about diversification and being confident and up to date with certain trends, and that you are having a solution for that. So we also see that certain things stop. For example, we focus a lot on service workers, but that wave really never hit Australia. So I think in the maximum, we had 100 ICU beds filled out of 8,000. So not many really service workers had to travel. Now it's about what is that next, and sort of we call this bucket of cheese. There's an amazing book that's called Who Moved My Cheese from Brian Johnson. Can recommend that to anyone to read that, which is around if your cheese station is gone, what is your next cheese station? And you need to be always ahead of certain trends, and you just can't be relying on this one. And for that, it is important to work with your channel partners and to really also understand how do you proactively drive guests to your properties. As a PM or as a brand or as a franchise or things like that.
What we know about leadership, which is do the things that you can control and leave the things that you can't control up to fate, I guess. So one of the things we knew that we can control is we can control what sort of behaviors that we have right now to put us in the best possible position for when things get better. I remember hearing this quote somewhere: "Never let a good crisis go to waste," which means that essentially this is the fourth time this company has been through essentially an existential crisis. So each previous time we saw that there is a way to come out of it stronger. So in regards to cleaning, it was a challenging project. It was challenging because it was something that normally we don't put a lot of, I wouldn't say we don't put a lot of focus on, but it is not like it's not the most sexy topic that is available. But normally we're more focused on content or revenue management or these other factors that are far more glamorous. So we had to really think back to the fundamentals, back to the core again about cleaning. And so we thought about some of the constraints that we're facing, which I believe a lot of property management companies are also looking at, that we do not directly pay the people who actually clean the sites. And these are essentially employees of each property. But we do have influence, and we have influence through our communication and through our education and awareness programs. So we knew that, and then what we did was we thought, how do we make this so simple that nobody could mess it up, right? How do we make it so easy such that everyone would find success in it? So one of the most fundamental things we did was, all right, we know that if we give, let's say, written directions, people probably won't be able to envision it as well as if we made a video. So my wife and I, we got together and we cleaned a villa, and we made it really kind of short. It was a 5 or 6 minute video, but it touched upon all the ideas of using disinfectant and cleaning all the areas that you normally would not clean. So that's just to kind of like raise the awareness and also make the education simpler. The next process of getting that built was thinking about how you're going to monitor this. how you're actually going to check and make sure that these properties are being cleaned. And we know that we do not have the capability to constantly monitor. That would require far too much output. So we took a idea of a checklist, and we put essentially checklists in each room stating essentially what has been cleaned. So essentially like a cleaning menu. The cleaners are then checking off each item on that, and they will date and sign each checklist so that a guest coming in will see, okay, this room has been cleaned. These are the things that have been disinfected. These are the things that have been addressed. And they would see the person's name and the date on the checklist too as well. So I think that level of transparency and that relationship that happens between the person who actually cleans the property and the person who actually stays there is pretty important. To have, let's say, a manager in the middle would actually make things more complicated and also make things less truthful in some ways too as well. So that was our method of creating a sense of self-monitoring. The other part was, okay, how can we digitize this as well? So how can we report back to people who are trying to manage all the different properties on a check-in day about this? So we developed an app, which was an app that we were using anyways, but this part isn't complete yet, but we're working on it. But essentially it will be a tick box given by the on-site teams to tick off when a property has been cleaned so that we receive that signal back, and then we can then allow the guest to check in knowing that the property has already been disinfected. We're gonna, actually the good news is that this has taken a few weeks to prepare, to educate and get everyone ready and trained to this. But happily today will be the first property which we will certify, and what we will do is essentially put a certification label on the Airbnb listing up on the front photo so that people who are browsing through, they will see that certification and they'll know that that is a COVID safe or COVID disinfected property, and they can have more confidence booking that. So yeah, that's the cleaning program that we've started.